when the other instructors would be teaching us like how to do the water test, how to use like these instruments to do stuff, he'd come in and be like, and he's like, you should be able to tell the pH of the water just by smelling it. I was
Mm.
like, you're crazy. Anybody's smelling water. But
Mhm.
he was like, if you do not have access to those instruments, does that mean you won't grow food? And that's kind of the thing I have in my mind where I don't want people to.
Yemi Amu, founder of Oko Farms, New York City's first and only public accessible outdoor farm, established in 2013, an aquaponics expert, educator, and cultural steward. She grew up in Lagos, Nigeria, came to New York for undergrad, and found her calling not in law school or music publishing or sci-fi writing, but in the soil. In our discussion, we talk about farming as Yoruba ancestral practice, what it means to create the world you want to live in, and why some things must remain deeply, stubbornly human.
I think the most basic thing it does is allow me to create the world I want to live in. The city is ugly. It's gray and concrete. And I love green and lush and water. You know, I love nature, but I don't want to live in the woods. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I completely understand.
So farming really does allow me to just bring that to life every season. There's nothing more beautiful than creating something out of nothing. Like you can't lose that, but we also can't be anti-progress. Either.
Exactly.
What type of progress though? Sometimes I feel like we're being sold something as progress that I'm not sure is progress.
Yeah.
It's power too, right? Because if you say it's replacing 50 people, but it's not replacing you though, because you
Yep.
the technology.
Before we go deep in this conversation, ask if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe. If you're on a podcast app, please follow. This conversation is one of many that are shaping a book I'm writing on how we find meaning as we go deeper into the automation and intelligence era. It's called Practice Ground, and the book is coming later this year, 2026. Don't miss it. Now, back to our interview. Hey, Yemi, nice to have you on the show.
Nice to be here.
Thank you for joining. You're the founder and director of Oko Farms, Oko
Yeah.
Auburn Farms. And it seems from what I've seen in 2013, you established it as New York's NYC's first and only public accessible outdoor aquaponic farm.
Right.
And it's not only farming, there's a lot of education, it seems, as
Yes.
it's also an education center. You're an aquaponic expert and educator.
That's what I claim.
I like it. I like the claim. And you're promoting aquaponics as a tool for environmental awareness and stewardship. All right. So my first question is very, very broad.
Yeah.
Why do you care about the environment so much?
Wow. That's a good question. I care about the environment because I care deeply just as a person. I think some of it is because I grew up Christian. And even though I do not consider myself a Christian anymore, I feel like the lessons that I learned as a kid taught me to be responsible and taught me to be responsible to God's gifts. Right. I feel for me, it's a sense of responsibility. And on the other hand, I feel a sense of awe, the world is pretty amazing. Nature is pretty amazing. Trees, birds, all of it is incredibly fascinating. And I'm just in awe of whatever it is that put all of this together, including us. And I do feel that part of my role as a human being is to honor that. I think that's what it is to honor that. So for me, it's not about going to church.
Yeah.
It's more about the day-to-day things you do to show honor and respect for God and God's word.
Yeah, nice. Wow. That's a beautiful answer. And, I think the older I get also, I start seeing how, nature is almost like the greatest artist, right? It's already there. It's already and so many people get inspiration from nature. Besides even artists, just, you see a lot of technological innovations where they design stuff based on stuff that's happening in nature, right?
Yeah.
How did you, just take me back a bit. How did you get on this path? I know you're in Brooklyn, right? Or
Yes.
all right, we're in Brooklyn now. Let's go all the way back to Lagos. How did you go from Lagos to
To
Brooklyn?
Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So I moved to New York, actually Queens, New York, in
Okay.
1996. I came with my dad, and the deal was I would come, I would do undergrad, and then I would go to law school. That was the only reason my mom allowed me to come, and that as soon as I was done, I would move back to Nigeria. That was the
Right.
plan.
That's the plan, yep.
Yeah, I got here and I was like, yeah, none of that. Law school's not for me.
Did you know early? Was it an early like this is not for me, or was it more you tried to
My
do
whole
it?
my whole life, I kind of knew that not my whole life. I think since I was about 12, at that age when everybody's talking like, what do you want to do when you grow up? I didn't know what I wanted to do, if that makes sense. I knew what I was supposed to want to do, but I didn't know what I want to do. I would watch movies, TV shows, watch music videos, and I would be like, I want to do that. But by that I meant that feeling you get when you watch
Mhm.
a good movie, that feeling you get when you read a good book. Like that's what I wanted to do. Like that, I just knew that whatever it is that creates that feeling in
Feeling,
people,
yeah.
that's what I wanted to do. And for a long time, I thought that would be writing. So I wanted to be a writer, and my mom was like, "What? No."
Like, are you trying to be poor?
Exactly. Exactly. That's exactly what she said, "Have you seen?" Because I was like, "Okay, I'll do journalism." I thought she'd be impressed by that. She was like, "No, have you seen journalism shoes? What come on, you?"
Yeah. Sounds familiar.
So, I accepted law. I was just like, fine, I'll do law school if that's what they want, because I really
Mhm.
had no idea. In my mind, I was like, I'll figure out writing at some point, or I will even become an actress. At one point, I was like,
Mhm.
maybe it's acting. Maybe that's what I want to do. So, undergrad, I started out as an economics major and then I switched to journalism. And then I minored in economics. When I got out of college, I started working in the music industry. I was working
Oh.
at a music publishing company, and my experience there was not what I wanted. I wanted to be in the creative department,
Mhm.
but it seemed like the creative side was more like a boys' club, and it
Mm.
was really difficult to break into it.
Okay. Yeah.
And so while I was like doing my best to try to get into that and thinking, okay, I can do music publishing, I can be A&R, I was just like trying
Yep.
to figure that out. I was also like writing on the side. I was writing a lot of sci-fi,
Nice.
would publish, try to get some of them published. I was like constantly submitting, and
Mhm.
the rejection is serious.
Ew. Yeah, 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 yeah. You gotta bounce back from those rejections.
And I really pursued that for a really long time. Just was like, maybe I love living single. Khadijah ran her own
Mhm.
magazine, Flavor Unit. Maybe I'll create my own magazine. I
Yep,
was just
yep, yep.
really searching for something that made sense to me, but was not the traditional path. Because I was
Yeah.
clear the traditional path was not
It was
for me.
not
Yeah. And then at some point I picked up baking. And, as it is when you're young, you're just like always like searching. I was like, okay,
yep.
I'm a vegan, so now I'm doing vegan baking. And people were like, okay, you do vegan baking. You should bake for me. Oh, gluten free. You should do for me. I just realized that, oh, there's some weird people out there and I can,
Serve. I can serve them stuff. Okay. They're willing to pay me too.
yeah,
Alright.
exactly. So I did that. And then I studied Ayurvedic nutrition, which is like yoga is a branch of Ayurveda. Ayurveda is
Yeah.
Indian and it has like three
Yep.
branches and yoga
Mhm.
is one branch. And then I studied the nutrition part.
Okay.
And then I realized, I really love food. Like I love not only the creativity in food because you're cooking and
Mhm.
you're baking, but the ways in which food connects you to nature. I was starting to make the connection between food and nature and environment and health and well-being. And I really loved that. I went to a culinary program
Mhm.
in Harlem that was an amazing program. It was just giving people culinary skills. It was a 3-month program in exchange for cooking for the public.
Okay.
So we
Okay.
cooked 400 meals a day, 5 days.
Wow. Okay. So wait, when you say 400 meals a day, is it big pots? You know those big
Yeah,
pots
yeah.
back
Big
in
pot,
yeah,
and
is
then
it big pots kind
and
of
then yeah,
wow.
and you
Okay.
serve people with dignity, right? Because it was
Mhm.
food, and you serve people with dignity, so it was like proper plates, forks, and knives. So one section was for people who wanted to take out. The other section was
Yeah.
people who wanted to dine in. So it was almost like running a free restaurant.
Mhm.
It's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of work.
Yep.
At the end of
Wow.
the day when you have to clean up, oh, I hate washing. I did that for 3 months, and I honestly, again, really loved it. It was supposed to be for people who wanted to work in restaurants. I knew I wasn't gonna work in restaurants, but
Mm-hmm.
somehow they connected me to this job, cooking for a building. It was a brand new building, supposed to be housing formerly homeless and mentally ill adults. And I
Mm-hmm.
was hired there to cook organic meals 5 days a week, and that just opened a whole new world for me. Loved
Interesting.
it. Loved, loved, loved it. I would be in the kitchen doing my thing.
Really? So
Yes.
let me tell me, like, like coming from where we come from, like Lagos,
Mhm,
Nigeria, like how will I put it? I'll say a lot of our mindset or whatever
mhm,
it is this kind of like aspirational, sometimes is classist kind of.
mhm, mhm,
Know what I'm saying?
mhm. Yeah.
So it's almost like, okay, there's some of us that have been privileged to go to the US, right? And I
Mhm,
can imagine the
mhm,
parents back home are just like, yeah, let me just keep going in terms of, you know,
mhm,
leveling up, right?
mhm,
And then you're here cooking in
mhm,
like affordable housing
mhm,
and you just love it, right?
mhm,
Was there any conflict between how you were feeling in terms of,
mhm,
oh, I love what I'm doing,
mhm.
and then when you're reporting back home, reporting as immigrants,
Huge
giving the
conflict.
immigrant report?
Huge conflict. My mother, because she's in Nigeria, every
Yep,
day she'd be like, "You need to come home. What are you doing? What are you doing?" Like, she
yep.
was so sure I was wasting my life.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad was here with me, and my dad is a dreamer. He taught me to dream. So there wasn't that much judgment coming from him. But whenever I talk to my mom, yeah, I'd be like, "Damn, Yemi, what are you doing? Like, are you sure
Mm-hmm.
you're doing the right thing?" I didn't have those aspirations like I wanted to get a big job. I talk to young kids now and I'm amazed. I'm like, "Ooh, where was all this when I was young?"
That's all
You
the
know?
ambition.
Yeah, I'm talking to teenagers and they're asking me about work-life balance and if I have retirement. I'm like, "What? I did not think about any of that." I had a single-minded purpose for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
which someone should have really helped me with that. But it was just I wanted meaning and purpose for my life, and it wasn't career. I just wanted to wake up every day. I mean, it was career, but it was not career in the sense of like a career that makes me a lot of money.
Yeah.
It was very much I needed to feel like my life meant something and my
Mm-hmm.
presence meant something. It was such a singular driving force for me, and I wanted what I did every day to bring me joy. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
And it wasn't like I was telling myself, "Oh, I want joy." It wasn't that. It was just in the things that I was searching for and doing, it was things that brought me joy. I can say that in hindsight, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the time, I just felt a little lost, and it's like, "Yemi, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
So and so bought a car last week.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. All the markers, right? That's what I feel
Yeah,
is then there's the wedding, there's the so and people are getting married, so are having
yeah.
families, but you're just like, okay.
Yes, I got that constantly. Are
Yeah.
you should come back to Nigeria. You'll get a good job. I'll put you in a bank. You make so much money. Like
Mhm.
I was constantly hearing that. And it did affect me psychologically. I mean, I was depressed for a long time because I couldn't understand why I just could not do the thing that would
Connect with that.
yeah, but then I also existed in this bubble in New York where all my friends were about like making a difference and doing something,
Mhm.
challenging social norms and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was just this really conflict for me of these two worlds where I felt at home in one world and then
Mhm.
that other world was constantly being
Yeah.
questioned, you
Yeah.
know?
When did you find that these two things kind of like found a balance, like between, or when did you get more comfortable with it in general?
I think time, and I still struggle sometimes, I'm not gonna lie. I think that being a Nigerian, there are these like markers of accomplishments.
Yeah.
It got better. I got featured in Vogue magazine
Mhm.
and I just kind of shared it with my mom and she made such a big deal about it. And I was
Yep.
like, hmm.
Yep.
I was like, huh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the first time I'm like, maybe I'm not. doing so bad.
Yeah, that's doing so bad, yeah. And I think, what one thing I learned is even the kind of like how we associate like status and all
Mhm,
these little status symbols, right? So
mhm.
even like when I finished my MBA at Stanford and I moved back to Nigeria, I trying to be, let's say, humble. I'm not leading with like, oh, I went to this
Mhm,
prestigious school, right?
mhm.
So I'm just talking, and I remember I met up with a friend. He worked at a bank. He was like the second to the CEO, right? The
Wow.
CEO walks in
Mhm.
and he sees me there. Usually in Nigeria, because of my hair, people just move me to the side, right?
Automatically.
They're just like,
My God, yeah.
they're like,
Oh,
you are obviously on serious.
yeah.
So he walks in. I kind of try to introduce the guy, just like waves me off, whatever. So they're having a discussion. I'm just quiet in the corner. And then the person that I was there to meet, he knows the game a little
Mhm,
bit more, right?
mhm.
And he just said, "Oh, I don't know if I introduced you to Nifemi, blah blah blah. He just finished his MBA at Stanford, and this guy's mind just
Like, you
is
could see it.
complete switch. Oh, nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, huh. Like, so if I wanted to like just consistently pimp whatever situation I was in, I'll
Mhm,
be leading with these things. And it happens on a smaller scale, even like like for instance, when I moved back to Nigeria and
mhm,
I was helping international companies connect with distributors in Nigeria.
mhm.
Your first approach towards that distributor, you almost have to lead with like something that will frame and put you in a
Um,
status, a
yeah.
higher status, right? Oh, I'm working with this company in Germany. Boom. Okay, let me talk to you. I'm working with so this New York stock exchange listed
Mhm.
company. Boom. And I myself have struggled with this, try to stay humble, but at the same time, I know that perception drives a lot of things.
So much.
So you have to
So much.
frame, how do I frame this thing so that,
Mhm,
the friction is not too much?
mhm. So much. I remember my mom bought this expensive car at one point, and she was like, "This is Lagos, so people are going to respect you. You better show up in a big car."
Yes. Yep.
I was like, "Yeah, I
Yep.
understand. Survival. You do what you
Yeah,
got."
yeah, yeah, it is. It is what it is, right? So
Oh.
for you, with your path and where you are now, what
Mhm.
what does, farming in the city allow you to express that words and writing and logic doesn't help you do?
Express. Wow. It allows me to I think the most basic thing it does is allow me to create the world I wanna live in. The
Mhm.
city is ugly. It's gray and concrete,
Mhm.
and I love green and
Yeah.
lush and water, I love nature, but I don't wanna live in the woods, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I completely understand.
So farming really does allow me to just bring that to life every season, and it just allows me to be me. So if
Mhm.
someone said, if there's one thing you would do, if money was not an issue, what would you be doing? And I'm doing exactly that.
That's always a good test
Yeah,
when you're doing the thing that if money was out of the equation, that would be what you'd be doing. And
yeah.
and Yemi, for you, sometimes when let me use writing as an example. When I'm writing, right,
Mhm,
in the moment I'm writing, I'm almost doing it selfishly. I'm doing it for myself. I'm doing it like this is for me. Like I'm organizing my thoughts, this therapy is all that stuff. But I've learned after a while, I switch into a mode where it's like, okay, now I have to edit this for the
mhm,
audience because I want them to have a good experience and not
mhm,
just self-indulge in my
mhm,
story, right? When you're building stuff, right? And I see you as obviously you're creative, but see you as an entrepreneur. You're building
mhm.
this world, creating. When you know you're building something that people need versus something that you're just doing because that's just a form of expression for yourself.
Yeah. So for me, in my work, when I'm doing the actual farming, when I'm picking certain things that we grow, that's when I'm just fully doing just what I want.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I have to look at the numbers,
Yep.
that's when I'm like, okay, I mean, you can't just be growing sugar cane and wallowing. mm, People don't know what that is.
Yep.
And so you better start doing the collard greens and the
Mm-hmm.
kale,
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
part. I think when I'm teaching, I'm not doing it for me. It's like the one thing that is really about the other people. But when I'm just like on the farm, I'm cleaning fish poop, I am, harvesting, I'm, removing pests and but like that is purely like my mind goes blank.
Yeah,
You know
your
what I mean?
zone, flow
Yeah,
state.
yes,
Yep.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then now that I have staff, I also have to think about them and their well-being and what's
Mm-hmm.
good for them. There were for a long time, it was just me. For
Yeah.
5 years, I just did what I want.
Yeah, I know.
I was like, all right, there are other people now who are looking to you, who need, they all of their
Mm-hmm.
livelihoods depend on this. They're also looking to you to set an example for how to behave. So
Yeah.
I'm like constantly going in between.
Yep.
But one of my staff, Jess, always she says like sunset is like the Yemi hour, because that's when everyone is like, oh, let's go home, and I'm like, oh, that's when I'm
Ooh, that's what
happy.
I'm about to get in my zone, guys.
Like, oh my God, it's a long day. We're going home. And I'm like, yeah, bye everyone.
Bye.
Like,
See you. It's
this
quiet
is,
now.
yeah, right now.
I
I
hear
just
you.
get to be here with the
Yep.
butterflies and the bees and the plants and just
Mm.
look at things and observe and tinker. And yeah, that's when I'm like fully me.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful to be able to do that as part of what you do for a living,
Yeah.
because you said something earlier about, we have to work.
Mm-hmm.
And AI is, offering us an opportunity not to. I think productivity is a tricky word. I like,
Yes.
AI makes us more productive. I think as human beings, we need purpose.
Mm-hmm.
We absolutely need purpose. Capitalism doesn't really make room for that. You have to figure out what's going to bring you money, what's going to give you
Yep.
status, what's going to give you all that. And it's very rare that people can find work that fits that category, that fits
Mm-hmm.
meaning and purpose, and will also like pay your bills, and you're also
Yeah.
respected in society. It's very rare.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said that because I know a lot of people struggle with this thing where it's like, I'm searching for purpose, but man, I gotta do this job, right? And I feel like when people do that, that's a good route. Then
Hmm.
there are the people that are just like, I'm just going to stick with this, trying to find my purpose. I'll
Hmm.
grind, I'll sleep in the grimiest places to find. Some
Hmm.
people make it, some people don't. Right. I personally, my balance is, I've figured out a good way to pay my bills based on my profession and
Hmm.
all that. But
Hmm.
then I still make sure I create time for all the other stuff like
Hmm.
writing, making music, the stuff that I enjoy.
Hmm.
How did you navigate this? Yeah, yeah, because as you said, capitalism is a is
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
is right there. The
It-
invisible hand on the market is
yeah.
always there,
Right there.
and you
Yeah.
have to pay your bills, right? You have to be able to find a place to sleep, eat, all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Sometimes that purpose, even though it's so important,
Mm.
gets pushed down the wrong.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Iya Jemi Gun.
Ah, God, tell
I
me
will
more.
start there.
Yep.
No, and I'm still finding
Mhm.
that. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna lie. It would be so much easier if I had a regular job and just was like sitting and doing a paycheck, right? So
Mhm.
that's one. But it took a long time. I think that what worked for me is I don't have that thing in my brain that allows you to quit. I just don't have it. I'm so stubborn.
Yep. Yep.
I will keep trying
Gone.
to make it work, and a lot of prayer, right? And a lot of like, okay, so why am I here? Why, all of that. And then what I found along the way is that because I stuck with it, people started to be like,
Something here.
there's something here. And then the support came, and now I'm in a position where I feel like I have such a great community that supports me and believes in the work and sees the work that I do as part of a larger vision and a larger purpose.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it's very helpful. And then I still try to incorporate, because then it's now the thing I was running away from is sort of what I'm doing. Like I initially was like cooking because I didn't want to be on a computer screen all day. And
Yeah.
now I'm still struggling. Like I'm spending so much time on the computer. I'm like, this is the very thing that I did not want to do. How did I get here? So that still happens. And then, I love to I find ways of incorporating the things that I like into
Mhm,
Oko Farms, if that makes sense. Like
mhm,
I love to cook, so I do culinary classes and I do farm to table dinners. I love textile. I'm Nigerian. I love fashion
mhm.
clothing. So now we're growing fiber crops. So I find ways,
Ooh.
yeah, and growing indigo and bringing
Yep.
people into the farm to do. So I find ways to not let like the real life part of it kill the joy of the
Mhm,
work, because
mhm.
it's like, you worked really hard to get to be able to do this thing, but now you have to spend so much of your time doing the real work of
Yeah, exactly. To keep it going.
to keep it going.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's what capitalism is
Yeah.
ultimately. You can't really run from it no matter how much.
So, I was thinking about this the other day because besides like a lot of like creative people that when you meet them they just want to create their art or whatever it is.
Mm,
Even when I'm with engineers just want to build stuff, right? But like a lot of art, um engineering products or whatever it is, it becomes a means to an end to drive sales.
mhm, mhm.
Business ultimate is sales, and I can tell you that I'll never like sleep on sales the way I used to do it when I was like purely an engineer. But as a business person, I was like, I got to sell.
Numbers are constantly running in the back of your mind. Yeah.
Exactly. And the products then takes this back role where the product is a means to an end for sales. But recently I was just thinking about it and talking to people, and I'm hoping, and I didn't know if this is a fancy idea, that the sales becomes the means to the
Mm,
end, where yes, sales is important, but it's just so that I can keep building or
mhm,
create,
mhm,
you know, and I'm trying to figure out how to flip it around so
mhm.
it doesn't seem like this, because I find a lot of engineers or technical people or creative people is almost like icky stuff, right? Sales. And I'm like, but if you want to keep building and creating, you need the thing to,
Mhm, mhm,
is almost, at least for me, a way I'm trying to flip it in my mind so that I can still, keep
mhm,
the main thing while I
mhm.
then do the thing that I actually enjoy doing.
Yes, and it takes time to find that balance. It's one thing to be aware of it,
Mm-hmm.
and then once you're aware of it, like, then you start, like, figuring out how to do it yourself, but it's tricky. It's not easy.
Very. Yeah, very, very. And Yemi, you mentioned something that, was really interesting. The different crops, interested in fabrics, indigo. I can imagine some tie and dye in your mind kind of
Mhm,
thing. How does your culture
mhm,
play a role, being Yoruba, being
mhm.
from Nigeria? How does that play a role in your current venture?
It plays a huge role, but it wasn't like that in the beginning, even though it's called, like, Oko Farms. When I started it at the time, my partner at the time was like, "Hey, we need to kind of find a name that honors your heritage," and I was like,
All right.
and then we looked at a bunch of stuff, and then we were like, "Oh, there's Orisha Oko. We should
Mm-hmm.
definitely do Orisha Oko." And then Oko has so many meanings. It's like Orisha
Yeah.
Oko, but also Oko is a farm. Oko is also
Mm-hmm.
kind of like a place where farming
Yep.
happens. So that was kind of good. It wasn't though until researching Orisha properly, like Ifa.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very much blown away by how much Yoruba culture and history I did not get as a child,
Oh, yes.
especially as a Christian child
Mm-hmm.
growing up in Nigeria. And I'm learning like philosophy, and I'm learning how Yoruba people think, and I'm learning about how incredibly brilliant they are. And then I'm learning about like the transatlantic slave trade and like people who came and what they brought with them. And I learned that
Mm-hmm.
they brought this incredibly rich history of agriculture and textile here. And it started changing kind of how I felt about myself as not just a Nigerian, but a Yoruba person.
Yep.
Because, I came at 16, I was for the most part just trying to fit in culturally. And then at some point, I was like, I'm a Yoruba person. I'm not just a Nigerian. Like, what is
Mm-hmm.
Nigeria anyway?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yep.
I'm a Yoruba person, and they have this history, and they have this tradition, and they have these foods. And I would go home and I would eat good food and I would love it so much. And then I'm seeing like Chinese people growing Chinese food, and I'm seeing Indian
Mm-hmm.
growing Indian vegetables. And I'm like, so one day I looked around the farm. I was like, where is who you are and where you come from reflected?
Representation. Yeah.
Didn't see it. And then I promised myself after that that I would like make sure that a huge proportion of what I grow is Nigerian food. And also we are all what, 2 generations, 3 max removed from agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yep.
know,
Fact.
it's our legacy. It's
Yeah.
the tradition, and it's what built the United States
Uh-huh.
of
Yeah.
America. So part of I'm learning through this, growing the food, because every time I grow a particular vegetable, I try to figure out if I can grow that vegetable. I'm researching it. I'm researching
Got it.
history. I'm researching culture. I'm researching like its role in spirituality. And then I'm learning from other people and their cultures about their food. Some of these foods actually cross cultures, but they represent different things and they do different things. So yes, it's a huge role. My mom the other day was like, every time you speak, the first thing you say is, "I'm from Nigeria."
It's like,
I'm like, "Yes, yes," because it's not something I used to feel. It wasn't that I wasn't proud. I don't know. For some reason, I just kind of hid it, and I don't want to hide it anymore. And I also feel like as a Black person in the world, it's so important for us to constantly express who we are
yeah. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
the world makes us like push it aside.
Mm-hmm.
Western food is healthy. Today you're eating Mediterranean diets. Tomorrow I was listening to a Nigerian podcast and they were talking about, oh, I need to eat more healthy. I need to eat quinoa. And I was like, quinoa? What are you doing? Quinoa? Quinoa? What are you talking about? When there's Gary, there's Eba, there's Shoko, there's
Yeah.
Sete. We went all the way to quinoa. It's things like that.
And you say that's the thing that the education, right, is where do you get educated from? And you
Yeah.
even made the point of like growing up. I think I spoke to Yewande Kamalafe
Mm-hmm.
not too long ago, and we talked about this extensively. Like
Mm-hmm.
growing up, you learn some form of geography, you learn some social studies, you learn about these colonial people that
Mm-hmm.
discovered Nigeria. And now you're just like you was 8 years old,
Mm-hmm.
7, you're just going along. Then you go to church every Sunday, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was until I got here, I started questioning things like, okay, let me go read another thing. I was like, oh, let me go read the Quran, let me
Mm-hmm.
go read some Buddhist books.
Mhm,
And I was reading all these other things. I checked, I had like a coworker, is Indian, he like tell me about Hinduism. I was like, cool. It was until I moved back to Nigeria in 2016, went to Olumo Rock just for like
mhm,
just to visit, right? Just
mhm,
okay, I know I've heard about it. There was a bookstore, just like a museum. There was a bookstore at the end, and there was this book that was like comparing Oromila, who is the prophet that kind of advanced Ifa
mhm,
divination, right?
mhm,
And they were comparing him to Socrates, right? And
mm,
based on a lot of my Western books, that I was like, what's this comparison going on? So I bought the book, and
mm,
there was this professor. Her name was Sophie Oluwole or something, and she
mm,
wrote this entire book about the Ifa philosophy. And I was just like, how am I just learning about this? Because every time I thought about like culture, right?
mhm,
The Yoruba culture, I think it's definitely growing up, it was food.
mhm,
So you're Yoruba, you're eating this type of food.
mhm,
The music,
mhm.
right?
Asoebi.
Ashwebi Owambe party, you know? That's for sure. They didn't mess up in that regards. But then the like philosophical part or the religious part, nothing. In fact,
Nothing.
it was, if anything, kind of demonized, right? Where you're just like babalao rituals. Stay
Adeyolu.
away. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's
now reading the
it's
whole
honest.
thing
Yeah.
about like, the kind of this balance, right?
Mhm,
And when with sci-fi, I was kind of going through it and I'm just like, oh, this system is almost like a computer system, right? This whole
mhm,
IFA system. I'm like, how don't we know this
mhm.
stuff, right? Um, for you, when did that click for you? I know you said you grew up Christian. Where did
Yeah.
that like
I
moment
I
click for
I
you?
think I went the same route as you did. When I studied Ayurveda, I was really studying Hinduism. I studied Buddhism for a while, just reading books. I was just also like looking at other people and other people's religion. I'm not sure at what point, but there was a point where You know how that quiet voice is like, oh, so Hindu belongs to the Indians, Buddhism belongs to this one. Don't we have our own?
Yeah.
You know? Also, when you show up in the spaces and you're not fully accepted, I think that was part of it for me too. Like, I was obsessed with Indian culture and Indian food and Hinduism, but then I would go to like an Indian store and they would treat me
And
like
you ain't one of us.
exactly, right? And then it starts making you think like, actually, do we not have our own? And
Mm-hmm.
then I would meet Black Americans who would be like, your name is Yemi, you're Yoruba, or Oko, and I would be like, "Ah, what would these people know about that?" And it embarrassed me because I'm like, this is like my culture, and they are more familiar with it than I am. Or I would meet someone who's a Santeria priest.
Yeah, from Brazil or Cuba or something.
I'll never forget, I had a class in undergrad. It was a history of Latin America class. And the professor was talking about the impact of Yoruba culture in Latin America because of the slave trade and the number of like Nigerians that came who were Yoruba. She was talking about Santeria and Candomblé and all that stuff. And then she was like, oh, Yemi, do you want to talk a little bit? I don't know.
Nah. I think I'm going to
I
sit this
was
one
like,
out.
please don't embarrass me. I don't know anything. I think that was the beginning for me is feeling shame
Mm-hmm.
a little bit like, oh, I actually don't even know my own. Like I'm hearing about myself and about my culture and my tradition and history from other people. Like, how did I not know that Yoruba people, like Yoruba is spoken in Brazil today? You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean?
Yep.
And that there's this whole religion. They still speak, like Yoruba, even though it's
Mm-hmm.
archaic. And then there's Santeria and there's Candomblé, and it like played this role in how people even chose to survive, or
Yep.
not chose, like it gave them tools to survive
Mm-hmm.
slavery and to gain their freedom. And I don't know that. Why are they able to speak Yoruba more fluently than I can? It was like all of that that got me curious. And then I don't remember, I think my dad had one or two books because I would talk about it with him. And he gave me a book and it was written by a white man. And I was like, wow, like this is like, it's a little odd when you're having your own
Culture,
culture
like,
and spirituality given to you by someone else. So
mm-hmm.
I was like, you know what? I just have to read and I have to learn. And also the one thing that stood out for me is how much ancestral, like honoring your ancestors is like core to like just Yoruba tradition and spiritual practices. And that is the thing I try to do through my work
Mm-hmm.
by being a farmer. It is agriculture. It is what my people did. And it is what ultimately brought my people here
Yeah.
in the beginning to this country in the beginning. So yeah, I think that's the one piece that I take with me
Yep.
is this work itself is ancestral practice. And then my mom will randomly drop information about like this family member that was like sewing. At one point she told me in her family there's always a woman on her father's side. The oldest woman is Yeleja.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, really? She was like, yeah, like fish was the family insignia. I was like,
Really?
I'm telling you, she told me this like 2 years ago. So I wasn't like, she was like, I'm just remembering now.
No, more like I didn't want you I didn't go that direction because it was in your lineage.
But and I'm always like, okay, so I'm doing the right thing, by
Yeah.
even like raising fish. I know like fish play this like role in family. So it's part of what I do with my work is like discover that. That's
Yeah.
the role that during all these traditional things is like I grow medicine because that's what our people did.
Mm-hmm.
They use efirin for medicine. They use this
Mm-hmm.
for medicine. Ewedu was used for women in labor, lemongrass,
Mm-hmm.
so it's like it's a process of discovering. Even when I'm doing the indigo, like I'm learning. These are things that
Yeah.
people spent their entire lifetime mastering, right? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
just like trying to tap into it as much as I can as
Yeah.
someone who lives in New York City and
Yep.
also was not even raised with any of that culture or practice.
Yeah, that's I really like value how you said that because even for me, where for instance with music, a lot of my music, I don't play like original stuff. I kind of go and sample old stuff to kind of, and that process on its own is just like, going back, whether, there was like, I'm now fascinated with this. In the 70s, there were these rock bands
Mm.
in Lagos, and particularly in like Igbo bands in the East. And I'm just finding out like they
Amazing.
were playing like hardcore rock.
Wow.
And I was just like, who would have thought like, rock with some like traditional drums can sound so good. So there's a big part in the process where it's like you're kind of cultivating history in a way.
Mhm. Mm.
So before we end, just quick, let's talk about technology and what
Mhm.
role does technology, automation, you can call it AI.
Mm.
What does it play in like how you're thinking about your work? How does it contribute? How does it take away from your work? What's your take?
It's interesting because I've been very intentional about removing aquaponics from that world and that space. Aquaponics is in the United States, it's very much about like indoor control environment,
Mhm,
AI, and all of
mhm,
that. And I was very much like anti that. Just from an accessibility perspective, the average person cannot access a lot of those technologies or even understand. And if we're talking about growing food, it should not be that complicated. What I have since learned is that even all of it is technology, right? Like there is I used to say things like, oh, I'm doing just the indigenous way. Well, that was technology.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
was technology too, and that technology can look a lot of different ways.
Yep.
And
The
there's
the
no
drum is technology. It's
exactly.
like a cell phone from back in the days.
Yes,
Yep.
exactly. Yeah.
That's how they used to pass
Absolutely.
information.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's about striking a balance because sometimes people come to me and they're like, oh, aquaponics is technology and investment. I'm like, "Ooh, calm down. Like,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what I do. But also, I want people to have the freedom to problem solve. Right. So there's engineering in this. There
Mhm.
is technology involved, but it is about approaching problem solving in a tangible way. And that's how I'm thinking about it. Like I've had people who reached out to me and want to collaborate and I'm not against like collaborating with like AI and technology.
Mhm.
My question to them is always, it has to be farmer led. I'm not going to accept something where you're telling me that this is going to make it productive for me.
Yeah.
It has to be something that allows my work to be better and that I won't be dependent on it. So, to give you an example, I studied aquaponics in Florida with a German man who's like, at the time was like 80, who grew up in World War II. And when the other instructors would be teaching us like how to do the water test, how to use like these instruments to do stuff, he'd come in and be like, "Hmm." And he's like, you should be able to tell the pH of the water just by smelling it. Guys
Mm.
were like, "You crazy. Anybody smelling water." But
Mhm.
he was like, if you do not have access to those instruments, does that mean you won't grow food? And that's kind of the thing I have in my mind where I don't want people to feel like I'm against technology or I don't want them to use technology. But it is very important that if all else is taken away from you, you develop skills that will allow you to still continue to do this. So
Yeah.
how can I grow food with or without the technology? It's just
Mhm.
there to enhance, not to replace.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like I can look at my fish and tell that there's something wrong with one of them. Even if there are like 1,000 of them in the fish tank, I know when there's something wrong because I'm present, I'm
Mhm.
observing, I'm engaging. A machine cannot do that. A machine maybe can help you diagnose,
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's like, how do we find that balance and how do we make sure that we're still leading with our human instinct and still sharpening our senses? I think it'd
Exactly.
be a shame if we just let AI think for us
Yes.
when we still need to problem solve. We still need to observe and touch and dream and create something out of nothing. There's nothing more beautiful than creating something out of nothing. Like you can't lose that, but we also can't be anti progress either.
Mhm.
Just
Exactly.
what type of progress though? Sometimes I feel like we're being sold something as progress that I'm not sure is progress.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard to tell what that is, right? Because sometimes even with technology, let's call it AI, right? I
Mm,
see I see researchers doing hardcore solving serious problems, like they're trying to use it to solve like how do we solve for cancer and all that kind of stuff.
mm,
Man, all for that. Let's go. Let's make that happen. But
exactly.
then you see someone else it's just like, oh, we're trying to make it so that, it can do the job of 50 people. Which, hey, that could be cool, but my question is why? What
Exactly.
are those 50 people going to do after, So sometimes when it becomes this, as you said earlier in the conversation, when it becomes this purely productive tool,
Mhm,
and productivity is still this type of artifact from this industrial era of like, are you a productive person? Right.
mhm.
And that's when I find that then perhaps it's not necessarily progress. It's
Right.
just, lining up the profits for certain people and without, every person getting access to that kind of
Yeah.
opportunity.
Yeah, it's power too, right? Because if you say it's replacing 50 people, but it's not replacing you though, because you
Yeah.
the technology.
Facts. Yeah, it's gonna replace all of us. No, 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 no. Nah, I didn't sign up for that. So yeah, one more question, and this
Sure.
is the last question. It's kind of like a fun question. So if the entire world, right?
Mm,
You've written sci-fi. So if the entire world went one or two ways, right? It either goes dystopian,
mhm,
which you know what dystopian is,
mhm,
right? Everybody's out here scrambling, dark, whatever it is. Exactly. Or it goes utopian, which
mhm.
is, hey, the all this technology and progress that they're promising us is actually progress, is helping humans. It's we have trustworthy technology, maybe some kind of universal basic income. We don't have to be thinking about this money thing so much, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, amen to that. All right, so you have to choose one. You have
Uh,
to choose either dystopian or utopian first, and
okay.
then you're gonna tell me what practice you'll be doing
Mhm,
on a daily basis in either
mhm.
of these two um situations.
Wow. Well, I'm definitely going to say utopian because I'm
Let's
an
go then.
optimist. Even though I'm preparing for like a dystopia,
Dystopia, yeah.
I'm hoping for utopia. What practice? So, like, practice in my personal life, practice and just like generally
Yeah, I think more, yeah, personal life, even generally, anything that comes to mind of like, how do you even spend your
your
time?
tone.
Yeah.
You, this is going to be a weird thing to say, but I ask myself sometimes if everything is going well the way that I want, what would my relationship with spirit be like? Would
Mm,
I even have one? Would I be one of those people who are like fully atheist and doesn't believe in God? Because
mm.
sometimes I wonder, like, is my relationship with God more like anxiety? Is
Take
it
away my anxiety and I'll
transactional?
pray.
Yeah, right. So one of
Mhm.
my practices is like to wake up in the morning to like meditate, pray, read,
Yep.
something that helped me go through the day. It's nice when I'm like in Nigeria in a tropical place because I would do it in the sun. I just love that to be like just have
Mhm.
the sun on my skin,
Yep.
eat a fruit.
Mhm.
I think I would extend that. I think my mornings I would be in that zone where I'm dreaming, I'm writing, I'm meditating, I'm praying, I'm hula hooping. Like that happens till like noon.
Mhm. Yep. Nice. I like that.
And then the day can begin,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
then, yeah, maybe it is going into a garden and like picking fruit, vegetables, doing all of the other things. I would definitely want to still do that, even sharing
Mhm.
with people, having folks come by and make ginger beer and share. And that's how
You seem like you have a full plan.
bake
You
bread
yeah, yeah, yeah.
with like wheat I grew.
Mhm.
I would grow purely for the joy of growing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Growing for the joy of growing.
Yeah.
Perfect, perfect. That's a perfect way to end it. Yemi, thank you very, very much for your time.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for
This is
sharing your
fun.
insights with me. Yeah, for sure. And I would love to. I might come back to if I have more questions about this.
Okay.
But I'm very grateful that you and they put us in touch,
Great.
and we can. It's hard to. I'll say this. It's hard to find a lot of Nigerians, right,
Mhm.
that come here and also not take the most conventional
Yeah.
path.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful that I can start finding more of us,
There's a
right?
lot out there.
There is,
There's
there is,
there.
there is. Yep. So hopefully, stuff like this we can keep growing our community for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Yemi.
Thank
And
you.
enjoy the rest of your day. Please, I hope to stay in touch with you. And
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah, and all the best with
Same to
your
you, and good luck with the book. I can't wait to read it.